You buy a home in Nevada. 6 months later, it is worth 40% less. Congratulations, you just ran the wealth treadmill in reverse. From abandoned shells baking in the desert sun to copy-paste subdivisions sinking under bad debt, Nevada's housing crash is not a prediction anymore. It is the current reality. In this video, we are taking a hard road trip through 10 Nevada cities where home prices are falling fast and illusions are falling even faster. Stay with me and you will see the warning signs, the clever sales lines, and the money pits that never make it into the listing photos, so you do not become the next example of online house hunting regret. And here's the twist. In one city, the collapse is tied directly to casinos going dark. In another, the discount listings come with a hidden problem growing behind the drywall. Tap like if you're tired of housing hype. Subscribe to Discover the Nation for more straight talk before you sign anything. Let us start with number 10, because it's already rough.
Number 10. Fernley. You roll into Fernley just after sunrise, and the silence feels heavy. Block after block of beige houses, listing signs tilted in the wind. Some so faded you can barely read the phone number. This was supposed to be the budget-friendly little cousin to Reno. Now it feels more like the warning label for the entire state. Recent data shows Fernley's median home price plunging in spectacular fashion, down by more than half from last year's levels. That is not a gentle reset. That is a market falling straight through the floor. Too many new homes, too few qualified buyers, and a local job base that is shrunk faster than anyone expected. Manufacturing and logistics cuts in late 2024 started the slide. Office parks that once promised steady shifts now have empty parking lots and for lease banners instead of hiring signs. Then came the insurance shock. Updated flood maps pushed large parts of Fernley into higher risk categories. Premiums jumped. Some owners saw their annual insurance costs triple in one renewal cycle. On top of that, many of the houses built during the 2021 and 2022 frenzy were thrown up fast, with thin margins and thinner quality. Now residents share photos of hairline cracks turning into real structural issues and moisture seeping into walls. Inspectors are flagging grading problems and drainage issues that were never really solved, just paved over. Fernley even tried to market itself as a haven for remote workers, despite spotty internet that chokes if you open a few browser tabs at once. At the same time, city money has gone into cosmetic projects, while schools and services face funding gaps. Local buyers are doing the math and walking away, while out-of-town investors who bought several properties at once are trying to unload them at a loss. Lenders have tightened standards, which means even fewer people qualify, right when prices are dropping the fastest. So here is the question. Would you take a low sticker price on a house here, knowing your insurance bill can eat an entire paycheck and your foundation might be shifting beneath your feet while you watch?
Number 9. Summerlin. You drive into Summerlin and it feels like nothing could possibly be wrong. Perfectly edged lawns, palm-lined boulevards, gleaming shopping plazas, and master-planned villages with names that sound like vacation resorts. For years, this was sold as the safe bet of the Las Vegas Valley, the place you picked for stability. Look closer and the cracks start to show. Summerlin's higher-end home prices have rolled over from their peak, leaving recent buyers who stretched during the frenzy staring at mortgage balances that feel uncomfortably high. Listings that once disappeared in a weekend are sitting longer. Price cuts and motivated seller tags are creeping into descriptions for homes that not long ago were advertised as untouchable. The biggest pressure point is cost. Association dues, master plan fees, and rising insurance and utility bills stack on top of already large mortgage payments. Many buyers who came in from out of state did not fully factor in the reality of desert living, extreme power bills, ongoing drought worries, and higher service charges in amenity-heavy communities. The retiree and remote worker waves are no longer endless. Some owners who moved here in 2020 or 2021 with flexible jobs are now facing hybrid work requirements or reduced income. When plans change, selling into a softer market means accepting that those peak Zillow screenshots were fantasy, not floor. Builders and developers leaned hard into the Summerlin brand and pushed out new phases at ambitious price points. Now you can find corners of the community where multiple similar homes sit for sale at the same time, competing for a smaller pool of qualified buyers. Appraisers are increasingly cautious, and deals fall apart when valuations fail to match seller expectations. Then there is the HOA factor. Rules about paint colors, landscaping, parking, and holiday decorations are part of the package. In a slowdown, surprise assessments and strict enforcement feel different. Online forums are full of residents trading stories about rising dues and sudden repair charges. So, would you pay a premium to live in a master-planned desert oasis where your monthly carrying costs keep climbing, your HOA can reach into your wallet at any time, and your resale value depends on whether the next wave of buyers still believes in the Summerlin story as much as you did?
Number 8. Elko. You arrive in Elko and it is obvious what built this place. Mining money. For years, gold and other minerals kept the town afloat and pushed home prices up. Now it feels like someone shut off the tap and forgot to warn the homeowners. Local sales data shows a steep drop in median home prices, with some properties losing nearly half their value in a single year. Houses that once sold for high prices during the boom now struggle to attract buyers even after major cuts. The trigger was a combination of reduced global demand and automation. Major employers scaled back operations, trimmed workforces, and leaned more on machines than people. Longtime workers with solid incomes suddenly found their hours cut or their positions eliminated entirely. Once those high-paying jobs faded, bidding wars vanished. Listings multiplied. Days on market climbed well into triple digits. At the same time, the town has been dealing with rising concerns around crime, stressed public services, and aging infrastructure. Local governments face the challenge of maintaining roads, utilities, and emergency services with a smaller tax base, and residents can feel that strain in slower responses and postponed projects. Insurance has crept upward too. Wildfire risk and older electrical systems have pushed premiums higher, and there are frequent complaints about power flickers and service interruptions even on windy days. Yet, new building permits were still approved while the job base was shrinking. Investors who bought at the top now face the unenviable choice of holding and hoping, or selling at a steep loss. Rental markets feel the impact as well, with fewer corporate tenants and more vacant units lingering on listing sites. Elko still hosts its famous cowboy poetry events and leans on its frontier identity. But while the nostalgia is real, so are the shrinking paychecks and falling comps. Would you tie your largest investment to a single industry that is openly trying to do more with fewer people?
Number 7. North Las Vegas. You roll through North Las Vegas and it feels like walking through a paused simulation. Fresh cul-de-sacs, blinds that have never been opened, and a surprising number of brand new houses sitting dark at night. This area was pitched as the practical alternative to central Las Vegas. Newer homes, a bit more space, and easy access to jobs. Then the job story changed. Warehousing and logistics fueled the early building wave. By late 2024, automation and consolidation had trimmed many of those positions. Some distribution hubs slowed hiring. Others quietly cut shifts. Workers who once felt secure suddenly found themselves competing for fewer roles at lower pay. Builders did not slow down as quickly. By mid-2025, a huge share of new construction here remained unsold. Median prices tumbled more than 40% in just a year. Developers started offering aggressive incentives, from massive closing credits to strange giveaways, trying to move inventory in a market that suddenly looked very crowded. Some communities advertise rate buy-downs, prepaid HOA dues, or even cars with purchase contracts, signs of a market that is pushing hard just to keep sales flowing. On top of that, many neighborhoods come with strict HOA environments. Residents talk about heavy-handed enforcement, costly gate systems, and fees that keep climbing even as property values fall. There are even stories of unusual violations, and a feeling that living there means being monitored constantly, not just protected. Behind the scenes, delinquency and notice of default filings have begun to inch higher, especially among owners who bought at peak prices with minimal down payments. Investors looking for rental cash flow are revisiting their spreadsheets and realizing the numbers no longer come out ahead. North Las Vegas still has pockets of opportunity and families who love their communities,
But for a buyer in 2025, you have to ask whether the combination of unsold homes, job uncertainty, and rigid HOA control lines up with your idea of stability.
Number 6. Mesquite. You pull into Mesquite, imagining a slow-paced retirement town. Golf, sunshine, and a simple life away from the noise. The surface still sells that story, but the housing numbers tell a different one. In the early 2020s, retirees and second home buyers poured into Mesquite, attracted by warm winters and relatively low costs. Builders responded by pushing out development after development of similar stucco homes. As long as demand stayed strong, it worked. When insurance and climate risk caught up, it stopped. New buyers now face a very different set of disclosures, with more emphasis on fire maps, heat risk, and long-term water constraints. Recent estimates show home prices down by more than 40% from their recent highs. Insurance costs have jumped dramatically after the area was flagged as having higher wildfire exposure and extreme heat risk. One modest house can easily come with a yearly premium that shocks new buyers, especially when they see the deductible. For retirees on fixed incomes, that is not just inconvenient, it can be a deal breaker. Some sales fall apart as soon as final quotes come in. HOA culture here can also feel intense. Strict landscaping rules, paint color requirements, and frequent fines leave many residents feeling more policed than protected. At the same time, amenities that once sold the dream, like golf courses and clubs, have faced financial stress, cutbacks, or closures, leaving owners paying for a lifestyle that no longer looks like the brochure. Local forums are filled with questions about special assessments, rule changes, and whether resale demand will be strong enough to support current prices. Mesquite still offers sun and scenery. The question is whether that is enough to justify buying into a market facing rising climate costs, strong HOA enforcement, and falling resale values at the same time.
Number 5. Henderson. You drive into Henderson, and it at first looks untouched by any crash. Manicured streets, gated communities, high-end shopping, and expensive cars parked in front of spacious homes. It feels like the safe choice near Las Vegas, the place people tell you to pick if you want the upside without the chaos. Under the surface, the math has changed. Median home prices in Henderson have fallen sharply since early 2024, with higher-priced neighborhoods taking some of the biggest hits. Buyers who stretched for a luxury home during the migration wave now find themselves with shrinking equity and rising bills. In some communities, owners who bought in 2021 or 2022 would not even clear their mortgage balance if they sold at current comparable prices. Rising power costs, water concerns linked to the Colorado River, and ongoing heat waves have pushed utility expenses higher than newcomers expect. Some communities have dealt with significant special assessments for infrastructure repairs, waterline issues, or shared amenities. When you add property taxes and basic maintenance, the monthly outlay looks very different from the brochure. HOAs are a major part of life here. Fees stack up on top of taxes and maintenance, and emergency assessments can arrive without much warning. Owners share stories of being hit with sudden four-figure bills for common area repairs they never see. Disputes over landscaping rules, exterior finishes, and parking spill into neighborhood forums and add another layer of stress to ownership. On top of that, the wave of people who once fled higher-cost states has slowed and even reversed in some cases. When remote work flexibility changes or personal finances tighten, many would rather cash out and leave than double down. That creates more listings, more competition, and more pressure on prices. Appraisers are increasingly cautious, which means new buyers can also struggle to get loans approved at optimistic numbers. Henderson still has beautiful neighborhoods, but anyone buying today needs to look beyond the gates and pool brochures and ask what happens if costs keep rising while values do not.
Number 4. Reno. You reach Reno expecting a buzz, casinos, breweries, outdoor access, and a tech scene that was once sold as the next big thing.
Instead, you see too many reduction signs and too many sellers waiting for a buyer who never quite arrives. Reno rode a huge surge of interest when Bay Area buyers, remote tech workers, and companies looked inland for a cheaper base. Prices climbed rapidly. Now the reversal is just as dramatic. Some major employers scaled back their expansion plans. Others trimmed staff. The stream of high-income newcomers slowed. Apartments that were once marketed to young professionals at premium rents are now offering concessions just to keep units filled. Median home prices have dropped sharply since early 2024, and property tax adjustments have left many owners paying more in taxes even as their appraised value falls. City budgets leaned hard on earlier growth, and when that growth slowed, taxes and fees filled the gap. Residents point to higher utility charges, new service fees, and permit costs that feel out of sync with a cooling market. There has also been a wave of regulatory changes around short-term rentals, with stricter licensing, compliance bonds, and more inspections. For investors who counted on vacation rentals to make their numbers work, that has changed the math completely. Some have converted units back to long-term rentals at lower yields. Others are trying to sell into a market where buyers already worry about future rule changes. Reno still invests in big visual projects, bright bridges and skyline features, even as some community services and facilities face hours cuts or budget strain. That disconnect is not lost on residents paying steep bills on properties that are no longer climbing in value. Neighborhood by neighborhood, you can see the difference between marketing images and the reality of slower sales and cautious buyers. Buying here means betting that Reno can reinvent itself again, this time from a lower price point and a more cautious economy. If that rebound takes longer than expected, you're the one holding the mortgage.
Number 3. Laughlin. You drift into Laughlin along the river and it feels oddly quiet. The neon is still there, but dimmer. Some casino marquees are dark. The walkways along the water have more empty benches than visitors, and hotel parking lots that were once packed on weekends now have wide open spaces. Laughlin's housing market is deeply tied to its tourism and casino economy. When resorts cut back or close, the impact hits everything. Between late 2023 and early 2025, several major properties downsized or shut doors entirely. That wiped out jobs in hospitality, entertainment, and service, and with it a large share of the income that once supported local mortgages. Workers who used to count on regular shifts now report unpredictable schedules or have left altogether. Home prices have dropped dramatically since their highs in 2022. Many loans were built on hospitality paychecks that no longer exist. Sellers now face the double hit of lower demand and stricter lending, and houses linger while owners consider painful price cuts just to move on. Days on market have stretched, and sale records show more price adjustments and canceled listings as reality sinks in. At the same time, insurance costs have shot up as climate and erosion risks along the Colorado River become more obvious. Higher premiums for flood and storm coverage add hundreds of dollars a month for some households. In certain low-lying pockets, lenders will not move forward unless very specific coverage is in place, which narrows the pool of eligible buyers even further. City leaders have tried to revive interest with new attractions and spectacle, but many projects struggle with funding or inconsistent use. Residents share images during heavy rain of sandbags lining doorways along streets once marketed as carefree riverfront living. Conversations in local forums increasingly focus on whether the town can diversify its economy enough to support property values over the long term. Laughlin still has river views and a unique identity, but if you're considering buying here in 2025, you have to decide how comfortable you are staking your equity on a town whose main industry has been shrinking and whose physical location carries rising risk.
Number 2. Sparks. You pull into Sparks thinking you might have found the quiet counterpart to Reno. For years, that was the pitch. Slightly more affordable, family-focused, close to the action but not in the middle of it. Now, the scenery includes something else. Skeletons of construction sites, and whole sections of town that feel unfinished, as if someone pressed stop on a growth story halfway through. Builders saw the migration wave into northern Nevada and answered with aggressive development. Entire neighborhoods were planned and partially built based on the idea that demand from California and other high-cost regions would never fade. Then, mortgage rates climbed, tech demand cooled, and the stream of newcomers slowed down. Some buyers who would once have stretched into Sparks began looking out of state instead. Median home values in Sparks have fallen steeply since early 2024. Foreclosures and delinquencies have risen, especially in neighborhoods where buyers stretched during the peak. There are streets where frames stand exposed, rooftops are wrapped but never completed, and homes sit unsold month after month. Lenders are now far more conservative on new construction loans in these areas, which makes it harder to finish what was started. HOA rules in some communities add stress instead of stability. Residents post about fines for minor cosmetic issues, strict requirements on outdoor furniture and decor, and a general feeling of being monitored while their home value slides. At the same time, shared amenities such as pools and clubhouses face rising maintenance costs, which can trigger higher dues or special assessments even as owners see their equity erode. Meanwhile, marketing campaigns still try to present Sparks as a bright, shining destination, even as many owners quietly accept offers that take them back to values from several years ago. The gap between billboards and reality grows wider with each price cut. For a buyer, the risk is clear. If you purchase now, and the overbuilding overhang takes years to work through, your equity could stay flat or fall, while fees and maintenance keep climbing.
Number 1. Las Vegas. You arrive in Las Vegas expecting spectacle, the Strip, the lights, the energy that once made this one of the fastest-growing housing markets in the country. The show is still running. The housing numbers are telling a different story backstage. After a frenzy of investor buying, remote worker relocations, and short-term rental speculation, the market has flipped. Median home prices have fallen by more than half from their peak in 2022. The big houses in master-planned communities that once sold for eye-watering amounts are now being listed at prices that would have sounded impossible a few years ago. Some still do not sell quickly. Investors who bought several properties at once are now testing the market with one listing at a time, hoping to avoid signaling just how motivated they are. Inventory has exploded as investors try to unload holdings, and owners who bought near the top attempt to get out before losing more. Days on market have reached levels not seen since the last major housing crisis. Open houses draw more lookers than serious buyers, and sellers are increasingly offering closing cost help, rate buydowns, and other incentives that were unheard of during the boom. At the same time, the cost of actually living in Las Vegas has climbed. Insurance costs have risen strongly, with more attention on wildfire risk in surrounding areas and extreme heat damage. Water restrictions and rising utility costs add to monthly expenses. Summer power bills alone can feel like a second car payment. HOAs are almost unavoidable in many popular neighborhoods and have gained a reputation for strict rules and creative fees. Residents describe fines for minor aesthetic issues, legal battles over paint shades, and constant rule updates that make it hard to keep up. Special assessments for aging infrastructure inside communities are another surprise line item many new owners did not budget for. City projects continue to roll out high-tech infrastructure and entertainment-focused investments, while the question of affordability remains in the background. Condominiums on and near the Strip report large numbers of empty units, even as fees for ownership remain substantial and rental competition intensifies. Las Vegas will always be a destination. The question for 2025 is whether it is a destination for tourists or for long-term homeowners willing to navigate falling values, rising costs, and constant policy changes.
You just took a full tour through Nevada's housing trouble spots. Overpriced boxes in the desert, strict HOAs, insurance that eats your budget, and cities betting on futures that may not arrive on schedule. This is not about scaring you away from owning a home. It is about keeping you from walking into a long commitment without seeing the full picture. A discount price does not help if your equity keeps sliding and your costs keep climbing. Would you live in any of these cities if the price was right? Or is the risk simply too high no matter how low the listing goes?
Tell us your housing story in the comments, especially if you have watched your home value drop faster than you thought possible. Share this video with anyone thinking about buying in Nevada this year. And make sure you subscribe to Discover the Nation so you never have to make a 30-year decision with only the sales brochure version of the truth.